Benvenuti a tutti, benvenute a tutti a questa nuova edizione del Rezzori. E io sono molto contento, sono molto onorato, ma sono anche umanamente molto contento di essere qua in conversazione con Georgi Gospodinov, a cui do il mio benvenuto. Welcome, Georgi.
Dai.
Georgi Gospodinov è una vecchia, in qualche modo, conoscenza del premio Rezzori perché alcuni anni fa fu finalista con Fisica della malinconia, anche quello tradotto egregiamente, spettacolarmente, mi verrebbe da dire, da Peppe Dall'Agata e poi pubblicato da Voland per le edizioni italiane, ma tradotto in tutto il mondo. Una piccola introduzione prima poi di spostarci in un'altra lingua, l'inglese. Voi vedete naturalmente, vedrete i sottotitoli nella conversazione con Georgi Gospodinov. Ecco, Georgi Gospodinov è semplicemente uno dei più grandi scrittori al mondo. È un riassunto forse un po' semplicistico da dire, ma è indubbio che l'opera che da molti anni Gospodinov sta portando avanti e che appunto con grande merito le edizioni Voland stanno traducendo, è un'opera a suo modo unica, è un'opera che non si spaventa di fronte alle sfide del romanzo, non accetta la dittatura della storia, del plot, della storia unica che va da una linea A a una linea B, ma è un esercizio continuo di libertà. I romanzi, i racconti, anche le poesie, perché Gospodinov è anche poeta, di Georgi Gospodinov, sono un grande esercizio di libertà dove il romanzo in qualche modo si reinventa ogni volta. Il romanzo, lo sappiamo, è un genere che in qualche modo non è codificato. Questa è la grande libertà e la grande fatica del romanzo, che ogni volta bisogna ricominciare da capo. Alcuni scelgono di prendere il tram che passa già il numero 4, quello che è già, o il numero 5, la storia così come è stata raccontata, il memoir, e invece ci sono altri scrittori che prendono per delle strade tutte loro. Ecco, Georgi Gospodinov è così, e Cronorifugio, che è il suo ultimo lavoro, che è il suo ultimo romanzo, che ha ricevuto il più importante premio bulgaro, che ha già ricevuto il premio Strega europeo qui in Italia, è la testimonianza, anche il coronamento di una carriera, inteso in senso nobile, non come sgomitamento per i premi, ma al contrario, come una ricerca del tutto personale. Cronorifugio è in qualche modo un libro irraccontabile, facilissimo da raccontare. E cioè è un libro in cui in qualche modo si cerca di dire una cosa semplice e complessissima. Il tempo non lo vediamo mai, il tempo non si vede, il tempo è come il vento che non lo vedi, servono le foglie per vedere il vento, per vedere che si muovono, allora gli diciamo ecco il vento. E come il tempo, come facciamo a vederlo? Come si fa a vedere? Come si fa ad accorgersi che il tempo c'è? Naturalmente ci sono gli scenari che cambiano, ci sono le facce che cambiano, ci sono i capelli che imbiancano, e poi però ci sono anche delle cose che succedono dentro di noi e anche quelle invecchiano. Ecco, l'impresa del romanzo Cronorifugio è quella invece di dire no, il tempo si può stoccare anche in degli spazi. Cronorifugio è una specie di romanzo che ha un'idea incredibile, un'idea geniale, cioè proviamo a creare dei comparti come se fossero dei reparti in cui noi possiamo inserire e stoccare e mettere quasi a museo gli anni 60, gli anni 70 e così via. So, Georgi, I'm very happy to be in conversation with you after so many years of literary friendship and friendship with the Premio Rezzori. As I was saying, basically, you chose the most difficult task, that is to try to tell what time is, and it's kind of impossible, and at the same time, it's the big struggle of every writer every day to try to make time be visible. Time is invisible, and we want to make it visible. But the first question is another kind of time and another kind of space. This is a big book in every sense, and I guess it took a while for you to write it. So, how long did it take for you to write such a big novel in how many spaces in the acknowledgement at the end of the book, I see that you were writing, and I know you were in New York and in Berlin, and so on and so forth. So, what's the time of this novel in your life?
Yeah, I'm really glad to talk with you, Andrea. And I started the novel actually in New York Public Library in 2017, and all libraries, but especially New York Public Library, are kind of time shelters, Cronoриfugios. And so I had maybe 3 years of hard work on this book. And I finished it in the end of 2019. It was published in 2020 in Bulgarian at in the first day. The book was published at the same day when we had this full lockdown in Bulgaria. So it was very, very strange situation. All bookshops were closed, and people just ordered the book, and so our books could travel, but we stayed at homes. And anyway, 3 years were the real time for this novel about the time. But actually, the idea of the Gaustin who is making clinics for the past it came to me maybe 15 years ago.
And it's evident from the book that is a book that you kind of digested every single day, and you moved forward every single day a phrase and so on and so forth. And it's very interesting the fact that you were mentioning the libraries, because actually the libraries, as you were saying, are Cronorifugi, and it's the only place where we can have a sip of 15th century, or we can have a taste, a bite of the 18th century, and they are there, and we can just go there, borrow time in a way, borrow a few days at the beginning of the 20th century in the UK with a novel, in a British novel, or even ancient Rome, and so on and so forth. So this is as I was saying, was a big task. But so you said that this novel started 15 years ago, meaning the first idea. And actually, if someone reads all of your books, and you know I'm your, I guess, biggest fan ever in the whole world, and so I know every line you write, and you can see that from one book to another, there are things, there are ideas that they appear. There's always the same character. There's Gaustin, that is always kind of the bridge between one work to another, but actually there's always it is as if my impression is that for you writing is also a way of thinking, and sometimes you have ideas that you think, and then you think, okay, this is not maybe for to be developed in this book, but maybe it's worth another book. So you said 15 years ago. So which was the phrase, or which was the point, and in which book in which you thought, okay, this is the novel I will write in 15 years?
Actually, in the Physics of Sorrow, in my previous novel, uh, the word time shelter appeared. And this word was deep in my mind for many years. Uh, Time shelter, what it could be, how to live when the future is cancelled, how to find our time shelters back into the past. Could it be dangerous? Uh, all these questions are really with me for these last 15 years. But when the idea came to me 15 years ago, it was idea just about the clinics for the past. It was the idea for how to help the people who are losing their memory, how to build all these buildings and floors of the 1940s, 1950s, 1960s, and so on, to calm, what to say, to make synchron between the inner time of the people who are losing their time, their memory, and the world around them. But when I started to write the book, there was this feeling of anxiety in the air. I think it was obviously for everyone in 2016, 17, 18. So that's why my idea changed a bit, and that's why the novel became a kind of anti utopia. And this idea for the clinics of the past just growing up to the villages of the past, cities of the past, and then to the referendums of the past. So in the beginning was really this fear of the future, this idea, this concept for the future cancelled, and this was in the beginning of the writing of this novel. Uh, because we mentioned libraries, there is a big relief just to watch books on the shelf, this, and to see that all Second World War is just like 20 volumes on the shelf.
Yeah.
There is a real relief and calm in this. And as Mallarmé said, sooner or later, everything will become a book. So our future is libraries are our future actually.
Yeah, and it's interesting because at the same time, books are kind of shells when you can where you can hear time, no? And that's the point. Instead of listening to the sea of I don't know, the Black Sea or the Atlantic Ocean, you can finally hear the 70s, the 80s, or you can pretend. That's the great thing of literature, of art. That there's also imagination. There are also lies, and so books are the kind of shells you can from which you can hear time. You were mentioning Physics of Sorrow. In Italian was translated as Fisica della Malinconia. That's that the book was finalist a few years ago at the Premio for Rezzori, of course. And it's very common in your work to find feelings such as empathy, in a way, melancholia and nostalgia, and these are all feelings. Basically, nostalgia. What's nostalgia? Is just time that is stored somewhere, and so you can just have a taste of your own childhood, just being nostalgic for 5 minutes. And being nostalgic, it means just to open the door and to get the chance to meet yourself as a child, the child you were when you were 5 or when you were 4, or something like this. But then you were saying something very interesting. You said when the book was about to come out, or the first day, the pandemic basically shut everything down. And what happened is just that people couldn't believe in future anymore. And at the beginning, we were very confused, and now we are even more confused. But pretending that now we are not, we know. But so and so the point of the pandemic was also that we were stuck in this computer, and the only thing we had access to was our past, because our future was just remembering and phrasing our memories. So I'm curious to know what was the reaction. How was the book received at the time? Meaning, it came out when the pandemic was out. People ordered it. Were there reviews or people thought it could match or could be a perfect rhyme for the time we were living in. That's my feeling.
Yes, actually, in the pandemic times, we had so much time and so little space, so less space. And this is a kind of double claustrophobic, what to say, if you have so much time in a so small space. And the book is working with the past, and it was kind of in synchron with the pandemic feelings, where, as you said, the past was, we had a amount of the past in our homes. We used to watch old movies, to look at the old albums, and to read old books, uh, Decameron, and so on. And that's why I think that people who ordered this book, they were the people from small villages to the big cities in Bulgaria and abroad. Some of them wrote me emails, and it was such a feeling of empathy between readers and me, kind of conversation that I was really, what to say, it saved me during the pandemic times. This conversation with the readers who wrote me, I wrote them. There are, of course, many reviews, but the most important thing were these letters between me and the readers. Also, as you said, the memory and the past is something that is you could find in all of my books, but this book, Cronorifugio, is a bit different. In this book, we have nostalgia, but not nostalgia to the other places, because in the etymology of the word nostalgia, you have nostos and algus. You have
Sure.
pain to the same to some places. Now we have this nostalgia to the times. I don't know how to say it. It's a kind of time algus, pain
Yeah.
to the different times. So I wanted to say that maybe the past is a good time or good room if you want to go there individually, if you want to see yourself as a child, but if you want to bring the past to the whole nation or countries, it could be a real dangerous thing. And yeah, this is the difference between the personal memories and between the collective memories of the whole nations. Because
Sure.
yeah, because you see now what we have now with the populist governments and so on, we have people who are trying to, what to say, we have dealers of the past. We have a people or dictators who want to take us back to the world from before 1989 or in the eve of 1939. As Gaustin said in the novel, we are always in the eve of 1st of September 1939. I think this is the day that defined all our life, even now.
Yeah, sure. And sorry, I wanted to follow up on this because it's interesting because actually the way you handle the past is the point. Meaning that populistic governments or dictator, they think they can rewrite the past and they can invent a version of the past. So at the same time, uh, dealing with the past and trying to experience the past is at the same time a very conservative thing and a very liberal thing, meaning that in a way, if there are people who want to use the past the way they want in order to achieve their political accomplishments, so it means that we have to uh, to have a very good maintenance of the past. Us too, we have to defend our past instead of just thinking that the past is gone. And that's a very interesting point. So what you do with the past, because it's not just a nostalgic attitude. Um, I have a question, unless you wanted to say something, react something on this. You wanted to say something?
No, give me your question. Yeah.
Okay, no, so the point is that I guess it's a very European thing. Now I live in the US. We are talking between Houston, Texas, and Sofia in Bulgaria. So, and people are watching us all over the world, but it's in Italy. This is happening in Italy. And here in the US, the relationship to the past is completely different and completely different. And sometimes uh, I have the feeling that Europeans, us, um, at the same time are happy with all the past we have, but at the same time it's kind of a burden that we have so much past and we don't know how to get to the future. Is it your impression?
Yeah, actually, yeah, in Europe we don't have big resources of oil or gas or something like
Yeah.
this. What we have is really the all these layers of the past and the culture, and that's why the shock is big now with this war. That how Europe, and this is very important for the novel, how Europe with all this immune system of the culture that Europe have, with all this resistance, could allow this kind of nationalistic virus and this kind of and the war actually in the heart of the Europe. This is a real shock for us. And uh, what else? There is a kind of paradoxical relation. If you have less memory, you receive most past. The past will come if your memory go down. Uh, that's something, very strange, and that's why in European literature, I think it's typical for the European literature to work with the past, to keep past alive, to maybe for other kind of literature the future is more important, or the presence, or this active living in the presence. But for European literature, dealing with the past is really really important. And
Yeah, I was thinking now you were mentioning the war, and was one of my questions, of course, and it's now impossible to avoid the topic, not only because it's something that is happening, but because it's something that is so shocking and so sad and so upsetting and so um, um,
actually,
and
the novel finished with the scene
yeah,
of the war, with the reenactment of the Second World War, which turned on of the Third World War. This
yeah.
reenactment.
Yeah, that's the point I wanted to touch. Meaning that then there's a repetition, and then there's the idea that you can have so much imagination, but repetition sometimes works better than imagination because helps you, just offers you what already happened, and says we are kind of a species that are condemned to do always the same kind of things. But actually, this war that we are in now, we are in the US, in Europe, everybody is in this war. We can't but say that. And so in this war, there's a big use of the past as a tool, as a weapon. So if you had to summarize, because there's a Nazification, denazification, and the old Russian Empire, and all there are lots of things that are said about that are pronounced, and so if you had to summarize the two positions of Ukraine and Russia, or Zelensky and Putin, what's the use? How would you describe their use of the past? Who is using what and in which way?
Uh, for Putin, it's the war of the past or war for the past. He wants to win into the past. So for Putin, this war is something like Second World War with a more modern techniques. Even not with it's again with tanks, of course. It's a kind of medieval time with tanks, with panzers. Uh, for Europe or for Ukraine, this is uh, this is another kind of war. It's something like you have two wars in two different times, in two different epochs, in two different mentalities, and that is something very strange. Putin wants to live in the world that he knows better, that he feels better. So if in Russia they made a referendum for the past, as in the novel, they could choose, I think they could choose 1930s, 1940s, because it was the great time for the myth, Russian myth. Uh, so we have from the one side war from 1940s and war from 2022, and this make things uh, even worse.
And whereas Zelensky's use of the past,
Uh, no, I don't think so. I think that the war for Zelensky, for Ukrainians, is the war for the future. And the war of Putin is war for the past. That's why they're completely uh, different ideas for the war. And what Putin wants to do is kind of chronification of the war because he don't have other move. So the chronification of the war is something that Putin want to have. Actually, every ideology, because I was born in 1968. I spent my half of my life during the socialism, and I remember clearly how they promised us a bright future. So we used to live with this empty check of the future. Now they the dictators they promised us the empty check of the past. I
yeah,
know that both are empty and fake.
yeah, yeah, that's a very interesting point. Very good point. Thank you. And I have two questions left. The first question is uh, about the structure of your novel and the idea that you have that I was trying to explain in my little preface in Italian, that in a way you choose, you are a kind of a free rider. You are not, you don't follow and you don't think you live in the dictatorship of plot, of one story going from A to B to C to Z. But your structure is always made of fragments, often images, pictures, and you are free to go from one place to another, one time to another. And in a way, but it's just a feeling. I have the impression that this is something that you share also with in a very personal way, actually, with different writers, and that there is something in common with writers of so-called Eastern Europe, that could be also said Central Europe, and I was thinking, and every time I read your books, I think of Tokarczuk, and I think of Cartarescu, and I think of other kind of writers that are completely different from you, of course. But there's this idea that you can allow yourself to use fragments, as if something was broken, but even with these bricks, you can build something. Is it like this?
Yeah. Yes, I could give some short reasons. Maybe first of them is that we're coming from the monumental times, and we hate monumental structures and monumental ideologies and so on and so on. And that's why this fragmentary structure is important for us. For me especially, this structure is important because in my novels I want to to keep the things that are fragile, that are perishable, small things. And fragment is most suitable shape for this, to saving or to carry these small perishable things. This is one of the things. For Cronorifugio, for time shelter, uh, it was important, and Gaustin, the character, says that in the past our time is not linear. The past doesn't keep linear time. You could go in back and forward, and this freedom is important. The third reason is that I'm writing about the people with a fading memory. When you have this fading memory, you're you're moving in that time would be really free and yes, free. Uh, so all these reasons, yeah, are important, and I really think I'm agree with you that there is something common for the Central European or East European writing, and one of the idea of this writing, one of the my idea is to stay on the losing side, to stay on the side of people uh, who are on the dark side of the moon. I mean, who are not publicly strong, who are suffering, and so on and so on. This is important for this part of region.
Yeah,
And
and
other
you,
thing, to
you
console, just to give consolation, it's important for me. I really believe, maybe it's old fashioned, I don't know, but I really believe that literature could produce meaning and could console people. This old Seneca's genre on consolation is still important for the literature. I believe in that.
Yeah, and that's what you were saying at the beginning of this answer, that basically being against monumentalization of things, and monuments are just people screaming, and it's just a speaker with a loud voice, and you can't hear anything. Whereas if you look for a fragment, if you look for the lost things, the lost people, and then you start hearing them with the shell, you can see how much is in their lives, and it's in terms of facts that can be meaningless, can sound meaningless, but as soon as you start writing them, actually, as you were saying, they become meaningful. And I think that also these fragments, I guess there's a probably an attitude that is connected to all the things you were saying, and then there's also an attitude that is connected to the fact that I guess that you are also a poet, in that you write short stories, very, very short fragments. I mean, the fragments is kind of the fragmented writing is kind of a genre for you. And sometimes they stay there as fragments. Sometimes the lines they combine and they become a poem, and sometimes all these fragments they can get together and they can build a whole entire monumental puzzle. And that's, I guess, very important to say. The last question before ending is there's kind of everywhere in the world, or I would say in Europe mostly, more than here in the US, for instance, there's the idea that the best time we lived, the best decade we lived was either the 60s or the 70s. And I don't know why. You have an explanation for that? What happened in Europe in the between the 50s and the end of the 70s that people would like to live there?
Uh, this is the second part of my novel when we have all these countries with their referendums for the past and for the happiest decade.
Yeah.
Actually, it was uh, the hard job of my writing because I had to talk with people to check some statistics, history, and so on and so on.
Yeah.
And you know what I found, of course, is that um there is a question in the novel. A main character asking a woman uh, in Denmark, which is your favorite decade from 20th century? And her answer is something that I could say for myself as well. It's like I want to live in every century if I'm 12 years old.
Yeah.
So there is this intersection between the personal age and
Yeah.
the happiest time. But people are choosing. It's very interesting to talk about the choice of the people in different countries, and it always connected not only with economical reasons, not only with political reasons, but with such sometimes with popular culture and at such invisible things, in such emotional things, not logical things, uh, that that I think writers are expert on this. They could explain this irrational, emotional things. And yes, most of the countries, no, half of the countries, Nordic countries in my novel. Maybe we will make a spoiler now. They actually they choose 70s, 1970s, IKEA, ABBA, everything. And you know now the 70s coming back again with the new ABBA albums and so on. The other part of the world is choose the late 80s on the edge of the 1989. This is our happiest time from the east, central east part of the Europe.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Italy, I guess, would choose the 60s or the 70s.
You saved 1968 because yeah, you have this Cine Città and all these movies, and you know sometimes the directors and the cinema and the literature they invented the decades. We have
Yeah.
1960s because all of these movies, not because
Yeah.
anything else.
Of course, of course. So, thanks so much. I'm gonna switch to Italian again and then I will say goodbye. Abbiamo parlato con Georgi Gospodinov del suo libro Cronorifugio, ricordiamo tradotto da Peppe Dell'Agata per Voland e che è uno dei 5 finalisti del Premio Rezzori 2022. Ringraziamo Georgi Gospodinov e a voi per continuare ad ascoltare queste conversazioni. Bye Georgi, good luck!
Bye, bye. Grazie Andrea.